Not so long ago, a great American whose shoulders we still stand on today told us about a dream. A dream seen through the eyes of a man willing to look beyond a world consumed with hate. And a dream that now belongs to all of us. His words, filled with color and detail, painted a picture of a nation willing to run away from the darkness of oppression towards a new life built on this foundation of equality. A nation that would finally be able to stand as an oasis of innovation, freedom, and justice for all. Not so long ago, equality was just a dream. It's no secret that technology surrounds all of us, but we have access to tools and resources now to make these dreams come alive in ways that our forefathers would have never imagined. Things like artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, surveillance, all show a strong presence in our society in a variety of different ways. What's interesting, though, is that not everyone has access to these technologies. Now, usually when people think about technology and tools for resources, they think about them in terms of quality of life and improving efficiency. But technology can have such a bigger impact than that. And I'm curious, when was the last time you thought about your civil rights? When was the last time you thought about the impact technology could have on the rights that we all live by? We think about the power to vote that can now happen electronically. We think about the right to get an education that can now be accessible to people all over the world via the World Wide Web. Even this ability to communicate digitally across the world. The world around us is changing. We're increasing our advancement as a civilization, and technology is helping us do that. But what kind of a nation can we really call ourselves if the reality is the technologies that we're using to administer our rights aren't accessible to everyone? I mean, aren't civil rights for everyone? That's what I believe. I think about the first time that I had a chance to vote. I turned 18. I finally got to vote for the first black president of the United States. It was phenomenal. And I had convinced my friends to leave class a little bit early because I was convinced that democracy was in need of our support. So I got to the polls a little bit early that day. And I remember feeling this sense of pride wash over me because for the first time in my life, there was someone on that ballot that looked just like me. First time. But what was even more impressive to me was the fact that I felt like I was part of something much bigger than myself. I was having an impact on democracy and the world around me, something that wouldn't have been able to happen without voting technology because that day we were using voting machines. But here's what I found interesting. When I left the polls that day, I overheard a group of people saying that these voting machines on the side were vulnerable. They had broken down. Votes had been miscounted and votes had been erased, and it put a pause on the entire process at my precinct. And all of a sudden, individuals who had taken off work and who had brought their kids and found a sitter now were faced with a critical decision to make of whether to stick around and wait for the problem to be resolved or to leave altogether and potentially not vote. What broke my heart was the amount of people that I saw just leave, or the people that told me that it just wasn't worth it. As we've become a more advanced civilization, we've become more reliant on technology. And as a result, our rights that we use to govern ourselves have become tethered to these technologies. And it's not just voting technology. We can also look at issues in artificial intelligence, the ability for these machines to really think for themselves. And as we think about different communities having access to resources and technology, what happens when the information used to program these machines is biased? What happens when the technology that's supposed to be helping me was not created with me in mind. I often think about this concept of having autonomous vehicles. I'm not going to say the company, but there's an idea that it can be the new Uber. These autonomous vehicles can go into your neighborhoods, pick you up without a driver, and get you to where you need to be. Taking in information about the neighborhood, your demographics, your personal information, and making an intelligent decision on whether or not to come get you. But what happens when they don't come to my neighborhood? What happens when these speed bumps with technology inhibit my ability to access government resources? These are critical conversations that we need to have because civilization is changing, technology is changing, and our rights could be in jeopardy if we don't think about these things. The impact that it's having on the way that we conduct ourselves is in jeopardy. In law school, we talk about the Fourth Amendment right to privacy, right? This whole ability to, not be subject to unreasonable searches and seizures. But in 2019, I can unlock my phone using facial recognition. I can access private devices with just my fingerprint. Do we have a right to privacy these days? It's an interesting question. I don't know if we do. And what that says is that we need to take a step back and ask ourselves, how is technology reshaping the way that we define rights like privacy? Privacy now has become this fluid luxury where if you can pay for certain protections, then you might have an increased right to privacy than someone else. If your information with a credit card company gets hacked and you've paid for the protection, you'll probably be fine. But people in low socioeconomic areas might not have that ability. One thing I've learned in school is that we're supposed to be vocal. We're supposed to advocate for people that might not be able to advocate for themselves. And what's funny about that is when it comes to technology and civil rights, the only time people really talk about those issues are during Black History Month or Martin Luther King Jr. Day. People don't want to have these conversations. And sure, artificial intelligence seems complicated, blockchain technology seems complicated, but as a community, we can't let that hinder us from having these type of conversations. We have to take an active role in how we govern ourselves and the rules that are going to shape our existence. A man had told me once that my life will begin the day that I accept the world for what it is. But it's funny because these technologies, these whether they're voting machine vulnerabilities or other biased technologies, they don't affect people that just look me. They affect everybody. They affect communities that are driven to innovate and invent and contribute to the next phase in human existence. As I sit here and I'm 28, I think about the man that told me that my life would begin the day that I accepted the world for what it was. And then I think about an even better man that told me that our life begins to end the day we become silent about things that matter. We have to use our voice. It's up to us. The world is waiting to hear from you, me, and our community. Thank you.